When I was 15, I watched this video of a 12-year-old who'd built an entire app from scratch. Meanwhile, I'd been trying to learn coding for almost a year and was still struggling with basic functions. That's when the spiral started. Maybe I'm just not logical enough, or maybe I started too late, or maybe my brain just doesn't work that way. Turns out, all of that was complete garbage. See, what we call talent or being a prodigy isn't magic. It's just a specific way of learning that nobody talks about. But fear not, learning rapidly is actually stupidly simple. You just need to understand one thing. Prodigies don't practice more, they practice completely differently. Let me explain. Most people learn like this. Follow tutorials, practice broadly, feel good when they make some progress, get stuck, look up solutions, and repeat. While prodigies learn like this. Break skills into tiny components, obsess over fundamentals, create systems for immediate feedback, target specific weaknesses, and then integrate everything together. Let's break this down with what actually works. First, stop doing tutorials. Start doing deliberate practice instead. Normal practice looks like watching a 2-hour tutorial on guitar chords, while deliberate practice would look like switching between just 2 chords for 20 minutes until your transitions are like flawless. With coding, normal practice would be following a tutorial to build an entire weather app, but deliberate practice would be something like writing a simple function 10 different ways, testing edge cases, optimizing your code, breaking it, and then fixing it. But that sounds boring. It is. That's why most people don't do it, and why most people plateau after a few months of learning anything. The second thing is to create rapid feedback loops. Most people practice in a vacuum, getting feedback infrequently or never. Language learners would wait weeks for a tutor to correct them, by which time they've reinforced bad habits, and musicians would practice for hours before deciding to record themselves, if they record at all. Coders write a bunch of code and only test it when everything breaks. But prodigies, they create systems for constant perpetual feedback. Language learners would record every practice session and listen back immediately. Musicians set up mirrors or cameras to watch their technique in real time, and coders would test every 5 lines of code to see exactly what each part is doing. Okay, but how do I know what I'm doing wrong? Well, this brings us to the third principle, the expert copycat method. Find someone who's world class at what you're trying to learn and then become obsessed with their process. For something like, say, drawing, how do they hold their pencil? Where do they start on the page? How do they plan composition, for example? For coding, how do they structure their functions? How do they use their variables? How do they handle errors? For languages, how do they form their mouth shapes? What rhythm do they use? And how do they connect certain words? Don't just copy their end result, copy their exact methodology, which got them to the end result. But I don't have access to experts. Yes, you do. Between YouTube, GitHub, and thousands of expert breakdowns online, you have more access to expertise than any generation in history. Moving on to the fourth principle. Use micro skills thinking. Most people think of skills as single abilities, playing piano or speaking Japanese or programming. Prodigies see skills as collections of micro skills. For basketball, for example, you'd have the dribbling technique, the shooting form, footwork, or court vision. And for something like coding, you'd have data structures, algorithms, debugging, and something like system design. They then attack each micro skill separately, master it, and then combine them back together. But won't this take longer? Actually, no. It seems slow at first, but it prevents you from developing bad habits that then take 10x longer to undo later. But the fifth and final principle is to embrace desirable difficulty. Your brain builds stronger neural connections when learning is difficult, but not impossible. Most people avoid the hard parts. Prodigies seek them out. For example, musicians would deliberately practice with the metronome set slightly faster than comfortable, and language learners would force themselves to have conversations without using certain common words, and programmers would challenge themselves to solve problems with tight constraints. So here's what actually works. Break skills into micro components, create immediate feedback loops, study the experts with obsessive attention to detail master each micro skill separately and deliberately make practicing harder. But wouldn't this be frustrating? Absolutely. Learning anything worthwhile should be a little frustrating. Comfort is the enemy of rapid skill learning. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start learning this way, every new skill you pick up gets easier and faster. Your brain literally gets better at getting better. That's the real secret of prodigies. They're not better at the skill, they're better at learning any skill. Anyway, today's rapid learning session is going to cost you approximately 1 subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.